Hi friends, you might notice we're in a little bit of a different setup right now. I am in my bathroom. What's up? I wanted to do something a little bit different for today's video because I got a little bit bored of talking to myself in my room, so I decided to talk to myself in my bathroom while putting on my makeup. So this is kind of a get ready with me video while I tell you about books 51 to 60 in my 100 book challenge. Also, you might have noticed that I have a new intro image at the beginning of my video. That art is thanks to my sibling Jess, who is an artist and animator, and they are actually doing commission work, recently started an Etsy shop. So if you're looking for digital art or even like textile, like crocheting and things like that, I will put the link to their Etsy shop and social medias below if you want to check it out. All right, starting off with Foundation, Born This Way. So the first book I read was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and I was friggin' obsessed with this when I read it. I gave it 5 stars. Again, I haven't really read that many thrillers, so I found it really enjoyable to read. A nice easy thriller to dive into if it's not like a genre that you're used to reading. The premise of the story is there's a girl who's kind of down on her luck. She just lost her job, her boyfriend just broke up with her, and she basically has no place to live and she's just crashing on her friend's couch. So then she sees this advertisement in the mail for this house-sitting job at this really fancy apartment building in New York City. And it's really famous and well known, and like there's been books written about it and like movies filmed there. So she's heard about this place before and it's kind of always like idolized it since childhood. So she goes to interview for the job, and there's a whole bunch of rules involved in working there. So you can't have any guests over, you can't talk to any of the apartment residents, like don't speak unless spoken to kind of a deal. But she has nowhere else to stay. So she decides to take the job, and lo and behold, things are not all as they appear in this apartment building, and scary, fun, exciting things happen, and it was just a super fun read, and I'm really excited to read more of Riley Sager's work now that I know what their writing is like. Concealer, Born This Way also. The next book I read was Credence by Penelope Douglas. This was another Chandler Ainsley recommendation, and it was definitely the last book by hers that I'm going to be reading. It's like, I love you, Chandler, but I've just like, this was kind of the nail in the coffin for me to kind of realize that your book tastes are not my book tastes. I don't even know how to describe this book. Like, I didn't even give it a star rating because like the whole time I was reading it, I was like partly captivated and part like going, what the fuck am I reading? So it was just like a very confusing experience overall. If I was gonna describe it to you, I would say like it's kind of incesty but not really, but the fact that I have to explain it to you as like it's not really incest is just like a little questionable. So the general vibe is there's this girl who has like famous celebrity parents, and they end up killing themselves because one of them has cancer and the other one would rather die than be with their child. So she's got all sorts of issues from the get-go, and she hasn't quite finished high school yet, so she has to go live with a guardian to finish up her school year. And so she goes to stay with her uncle, and he's not related to her by blood, so they're not exactly like, but he's still her uncle, and he has 2 teenage sons. And you can imagine what happens. Yep, you guessed it. She has sex with all 3 of them. Powder. So yeah, it was just a very questionable experience overall because part of me was like, this is horrible trash, but I'm so here for it. But the majority of me was like, no, this is too much. This is unhealthy. This is not okay. She needs to see a therapist, not sleep with her cousins. So yeah, and also like the guy she ends up with at the end was like the least unhealthy relationship of the 3 of them, so it was just like, girl, no, that is not good for you. So yeah, I didn't rate it. I probably will never read another Penelope Douglas book ever again, but you know, Who knows, maybe I'll just want to like punish myself a little bit in the future just for fun. I don't know, we'll see. The next book I read was Cress by Marissa Meyer, which is the third installment in the Lunar Chronicles series. And obviously I loved it because I love this whole series. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was so good. One of the best things about this book is that all of the characters are now starting to come together and interact with each other, and all of those scenes were just like so amazing and entertaining. I really like that the books aren't insular. It's not just 4 separate stories about 4 separate couples, but like as each book progresses in the series, they all like come together and they form a team and a little family kind of, and it's just so well done. Like the other characters in the series, this book follows a fairy tale retelling. This time it is Rapunzel, and it actually follows true to the Grimm brothers' original story, where the prince is temporarily blinded by the evil queen. But of course there is a spacey spin on it, and so instead of being locked in a tower, she is locked in a satellite up in space and has to spy on the earthlings for the evil lunar queen Lavana. That's a lot of powder. Looking a little ghosty. Boop. Anyways, I thought it was fantastic, and in the next video I'll be talking about Winter because I immediately had to finish the series because I was just so obsessed with it. The 4th book I read was The Adventure Zone, Murder on the Rockport Limited, which is the 2nd graphic novel of the McElroy brothers based on their D&D podcast. Also going to be putting on Too Faced bronzer. This is just the birthday one that you get for free. It's like the only bronzer I own. It's probably like a bit too dark for my skin, or like I don't know how to put it on right, but it's just like I get it for free, so it's what I use. And sometimes I'm a little accidentally heavy-handed with it, but like, hey, what you gonna do? So I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I just love everything the McElroy brothers do, and I love their Mabim Bam podcast so much, which is My Brother and Me, if you are not familiar with their podcasts. I also really enjoy the podcast that the older brother Justin does with his wife Sydney. She's a doctor, so it's called Sawbones, and it's basically an overview of different medical maladies and mysteries and mistakes that people way back in ye olden times did, thinking that it was helping people when actually they were just like rubbing dirt and slugs on a wound or whatever it was that people used to do. So I won't tell you too much about the plot, but if you like D&D, I would say definitely go and check it out. The next book I read was Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly, and this was so fantastic, like honestly blew me away. This was kind of right after I read Cress. I was really obsessed with fairy tale retellings for a while, and I went out and read a couple different ones. But this one is essentially Cinderella, but told from the point of view of the evil stepsisters. One of the stepsisters in particular is sort of our main character. And it also follows the original Grimm brothers storyline where the stepsisters cut off parts of their feet to fit into the glass slipper. So the book kind of opens onto that scene of them cutting their feet off to try and win the hearts of the prince. But it's done so well with such a like smart feminist spin on it, because it's not that they're just evil, it's that society has put all of these expectations onto the sisters because they're not conventionally pretty like Cinderella is, to the point where they feel like they have to cut off parts of their body that are unwanted so that the prince will love and accept them. And I just really loved all of the themes that were at play in this book. Especially there was an addition of 2 characters, one Chance and another Fate, and they kind of interact with the stepsister throughout the course of the book, and they try to pull her each to their own sides. Like Chance is saying, oh, give her a chance to turn things around, and Fate is saying, no, it's her fate to be evil and unhappy. And it's sort of a test of wills between these 2 magical characters interacting with the sister. I'm going to be using the Benefit eyebrow pencil for my eyebrows. And like, maybe you don't want to know what makeup I'm using, but like, sorry, deal with it. I'm going to tell you because I feel like telling you. Also, like, how do beauty gurus do their makeup while talking in front of a camera like every day? It's so hard. Like, I'm having a struggle with this, but I'm doing it for you guys. So the next book I read was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. I think that's how you say her last name. This blew me away, like also a 5-star book for me. The funny thing is I don't know if it would be a 5-star if I reread it, but just at the time, I just loved it so much and I was so impressed by it. It does a few really cool things. Firstly, it's got great representation for a physical disability. So the main character has cerebral palsy. It's not really talked about too much because it's not that important to the plot. It's just like she happens to have it. And now we go on with the book, and I really enjoyed that. And how it just kind of got referenced here and there within the book. It's kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So there is a prince in a magical land whose kingdom has been cursed, and there's a beast who comes and, you know, kind of roams around destroying things. So for years and years, the prince has been sending his knight to come over to our world to kidnap girls to hopefully try and break the curse. Unfortunately, one by one, they all end up getting killed by the beast or through other unfortunate incidents. But finally we start off with our main character getting kidnapped. And I just love her initial reaction, which is just like, she tries to escape right away, like immediately. She's like, handsome prince, beautiful castle. Nope, you guys kidnapped me. I'm gonna try to peace. And I just read that and I thought, finally, an appropriate reaction. I mean, if you compare that to Bella Swan finding out Edward's a vampire and being like, I don't care. You can kill me. I don't care. I just want to be with you. And it's like, Bella, you dumb bitch. Like, that's not healthy. That's not appropriate. So I just really liked that the main character of this book, like, you know, had some self-worth and was like, no, I'm getting out of here because y'all crazy. My only really big complaint with the book is that I liked the knight character, Gray, so much more than the prince character. And I actually really shipped the two of them together, which is why I decided not to continue on with the series because sadly, despite my wishes, she does not end up with him. She stays with the prince, and Gray ends up finding another love interest in the second book. But in my head, they just live together, and she chose to go off with Gray, so that's just how they live in my head. And I'm gonna leave the series like that. Okay, we're starting on the eyes. I'm gonna use my Urban Decay Born to Run palette, and I normally just kind of stick to the simple, like, brown shades in the top row, but I think I want to try and do something fun. So the next book I read was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton, and this was just everything I want in a book and more. It's just was so perfect and heartbreaking and beautiful, and it just made you want to rage at the world and fall in love with it all over again. It was just honestly a perfect book, and I will read anything that this woman writes because she is a goddess. So the story follows our main character, Ava Lavender, who is a girl who has randomly been born with a large pair of wings on her back like an angel. So as you can tell, the book has some elements of magical realism in it, and it's kind of a generational story. So it follows Ava while also telling the story of her mother and her mother's family as well, like her grandmother. So it's a story of 3 generations of women, the magic that comes into their lives, the men and the people that come into their lives, and it's just so beautiful. And like, if you don't cry at the end of it, I'm gonna question your life choices. The 8th book I read was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, and this was such a fun book. I listened to the audiobook actually, and if you have a choice, I highly recommend you do that as well, because it's just, I feel like it was meant to be in the audiobook format. It's got these little like commercials and jingles and announcements, and even like news reporter interviews and stuff. So it's just like, really the entertainment value is through the roof in the audiobook format. So good. I did end up giving it 3.5 stars, just because, you know, it's lighthearted, it's fun, but it doesn't have a lot of substance. It's more just like for entertainment's sake. So the premise of the story is this airplane full of teenage beauty queens crash lands on a deserted island, and so they have to figure out how to survive there. And of course it is a satire, so instead of having logical reactions like, you know, where are we going to find food and shelter, all of the girls are like, oh no, how do I do my hair? Like, let's practice our pageant routines, ladies. We need to master this for when everybody comes to rescue us. And I like how it kind of subverted itself as well. So you have those kind of really surface level basic reactions at the start, but then as you progress through the book, you kind of get to interact with each of the different girls one by one. You kind of get like a spotlight shone on each of those girls, and you find out that you know, kind of surface layer generalization that you're given about each of them is just that, and really they're all complex and individuals, and they have their own struggles and amazing qualities about them. Yeah, it was just very uplifting and entertaining. The ninth book I read was Forgive Me, Leonard, Peacock by Matthew Quick. This was another 3.5-star book for me. Trigger warnings for suicide and sexual assault, but if you're into the teen angst genre, I'd say definitely recommend you pick this book up. I enjoyed it a lot. The reason I gave it a little bit lower rating than I might have otherwise is just that I thought Leonard was a little bit of a woman hater in the book. I'll get into that, but firstly let me just give you the summary. So, Forgive Me, Leonard, Peacock is a story about a boy, Leonard, who wakes up on the morning of his birthday and decides that he's going to go kill his childhood best friend and then himself. So throughout the course of the book, he interacts with different people in his life, says goodbye to people he cares about, kind of brushes off people who are concerned about him because they can see that something's up and he's doing all of these things that are clearly signs that he's about to kill himself, like giving away important items, etc. But yeah, my biggest issue that I had is how he treats and interacts with the women in the story. And I don't know if this was done intentionally, if Matthew Quick was trying to show us how Leonard's bad relationship with his mother kind of put a lens on how he views women in general, and that's why it was so hard for him to find redeeming qualities in any of them. But it just felt to me like he just couldn't be bothered to write any good women into his book, and they all had a flaw for one reason or another. Like, one of the teachers flirts with her male students, and there's another girl who's just kind of vapid and she has no real thoughts of her own other than being a religious character in the book. And I just didn't love that. Was it really so hard to just write some real redeemable woman into this story? Like, I know it's about Leonard, not about the women, but I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The final book I read was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I hope I'm saying their first name right. I'm not exactly sure. It's like the Scottish Sean A-N. Is it like Seanan? Is it Shannon? I'm not sure. But anyways, Every Heart a Doorway, which is the first book in the Wayward Children series. And I immediately added this book to my top 10 books of 2020 list after I read it. I was absolutely blown away by it, and I just loved it so, so much. So if you like Alice in Wonderland and dark YA fantasies and books with queer representation, I think you would really, really enjoy this book a lot. The story is that our world has doorways connecting it to an endless number of fantasy worlds, and each one of them is unique and different. So some are like the underworld, some are like Alice in Wonderland nonsense worlds, so they're all different. And there's certain children that get called to these worlds because they fit in with them or they're meant to be there, and they go through the doorways and they end up in these worlds. And sometimes the children come back to our world. They don't always come back by choice. So the children who want to go back to their fantasy world and have trouble coping with being in our world all get sent to Miss West's Wayward Home for Children, which is sort of a boarding school where children can, you know, relate to other kids who have been in this situation of going to a fantasy world and having people not believe them, etc. Does anybody else put their mascara on with two hands? Because I sometimes do my right hand, right eye, left hand, left eye. I don't know why. I don't think it's easier this way, but it's just what I do. Trying to figure out what lipstick. I think I'm gonna go with this like purpley Revlon one. I don't know if that'll look good. So the main character of this story is Nancy, who went to this underground world where she just stood still like a statue all day. But again, like, it was perfect for her. It was the world she was meant to be in. So now she's back in our world and she just like can't deal with it. Nancy's also asexual, which is awesome. And there's a trans character in the book as well, who gets described as the most beautiful boy that Nancy's ever seen. He's a great character. Fans of the series are like still waiting for him to get his own book, because each book in the series follows a different one of these children. So Nancy comes to the school, she meets all of these different students who have gone to all of these different worlds, and it's just so like dreamy and whimsical and dark and beautiful. And I really love the friendships in this story, and how it's all about just fighting for acceptance and trying to find your place in the world. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful story, and highly, highly recommend. Okay, makeup is done. Yay, and all the books are done. Perfect timing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.